Welcome everyone. Welcome to this Oncrawl SEO Space Lab episode number 8. I'm Emma Labrador, Head of Marketing at Oncrawl, and I'll be your host today. You can ask your question at any time using the chat section. We'll answer them at the end. You can also use the hashtag SEO Space Lab if you want to chat on Twitter or anywhere else. Today is episode showcase Stellar SEO. I'm really pleased to have you guys on board today. We are going to talk about how to use automation for high-ROI SEO tactics. My guests today are Aleyda Solis, GR Oakes, Will Critchlow. Welcome, guys. I'm really pleased to have you today.
Hello, Emma. Hello, everybody.
So, quick introduction, Aleyda. We don't need to present you anymore, but you're highly experienced international SEO consultant at ROI. You were the 2018 Search Personality of the Year at the European Search Awards. You wrote a book, you spoke to more than 100 conferences in 20 countries. Anything you want to add to this biography?
Yes, I am stuck at home now, not traveling so much anymore. No, don't worry. I'm very happy to be here today. Yes, I'm an SEO consultant. I used to work remote, so it's not necessarily a big change for me nowadays. But yes, I'm more at home lately. So yes, it's a pleasure to be here today. Thank you.
Cool, thank you. Gio, you're the Senior Director of Technical SEO Research at Locomotive. You're a big fan of the tech side of SEO, and you've blogged a lot about data science and SEO. You're also the co-organizer of the Raleigh SEO meetup, right?
I was the organizer of the Raleigh SEO meetup, and we started the Beer and SEO meetup, which is transitioned a little bit to being the alcohol and SEO meetup on Zoom now. So looking to get back to actually meeting up in real life soon.
Awesome. And Will, you founded Distill in 2005, which is now part of Brain Labs, an online marketing agency that hosts the Search Love conferences in the US and UK. You're now the CEO of Search Pilots, an SEO A/B testing platform made by Distill and SEO partner at Brain Labs.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, not so much with the conferences this year. They're all postponed just now, unfortunately. But again, looking forward to getting back in person with people soon.
Thank you. So today, as I said, we'll be talking about SEO and automation. So as a quick introduction, could you tell us what is SEO automation and what's its goal? Aleyda, maybe you can start if you want.
Yes. Well, for me, when you talk about the automation of SEO, this is to automatize the trivial but time-consuming type of SEO task, especially for me, right, as an independent consultant, right? Like, for example, setting recurring crawls, monthly report generation, even if of course, like recommendations, and this is important. What is the layer that you actually want to automatize versus the one that you want to actually add on for those elements or recommendations that are context aware or need input, external inputs based on the context, right? But pretty much is to automatize the trivial but time-consuming SEO tasks for me. Yeah, the traffic alerts, change of configurations that you need to be alerted of, and then of course for me it's also about improving a lot of project management and communication workflow with clients that can be also very time-consuming. And so, for example, again, when something is changed on the website of the client, I have an alert, and that alert will integrate directly to their project management system. So the relevant person in their team is informed, and that doesn't need to go through me, for example, all the time. So these are the type of tasks that for me make complete sense to automate without any risk, thinking that yeah, because automating you will lose important validation and you'll lose control, and the results won't be the ideal ones.
JR, Will, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think I would maybe Sorry, I'd already said. So yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there, Aleyda, with boring is a great thing to pass off to a computer, right? And I think maybe I would add the highest profile thing is probably the other thing computers are good at is speed. So anything with massive scale where it's just not feasible for a human to necessarily look at that scale of data. And that edges into the third camp, which is there are a handful of things that computers are capable of that people basically aren't. And typically that, again, comes back to the scale question. So where you're talking about, and this is a bit closer to your alerting and automated discovery comment there, Aleyda. So where we're doing things like automating the automatic forecasting of traffic, so that you're building models based off historic data, incorporating thousands of data points every day, and building ongoing forward-looking models that can be part of what detects a change versus seasonality or a change versus a control group, and get a scenario where a computer can do something in an automated way that a person couldn't even in theory do.
And do you think there's a difference if you're working as a freelancer in-house or within an agency?
Well, I think that definitely the type of support that you have is not necessarily the same. For example, for me, for my clients to do some sort of automations within their platform internally, will require for me to build the use case and show the potential ROI and have some sort of additional internal support potentially to make it happen. And I can imagine that you are in-house and you also have a much more deeper knowledge of not only the bureaucratic side of the company, but also how workflows are implemented, the tech stack that you will rely on, etc., can definitely facilitate stuff.
GR, what's your point on that?
I would say that the one of the things that I see myself doing at Locomotive is empowering employees with what Will said, which is with insights that couldn't be gained by just manually searching things, right? Like change management, parsing through tons of data, extracting data for websites. So empowering that, and also looking to make processes perfect in some respects, because I think that was another piece that there is the scale that a lot of that humans are limited to a degree that machines aren't for certain types of tasks, but there's also a repeatability factor to it, right? That this process is done the same way, or this component of the process is done the same way, goes through this pipeline that's very rigid to produce this information. So it's something that team members, or at least if you have an analyst pulling data and then a higher level team member going through and reviewing that they know that process and that data has been and changed the same way. So the expectation isn't dependent upon the person that pulled the data. So I think the repeatability and of processes is a big part for us as well as obviously with an agency. I think about all of the tasks that happen repeatedly over the course of a year, and those compound on each other. And if you can save 5 minutes per task across 10 team members over the course of a year, that's incredible savings of the routine to go towards higher level work.
Yeah, it can be a real game changer.
That's the difference for me between the in-house and agency. I think there's two kind of key axes. One is if you're in-house, you're probably optimizing for repetition tasks on the same data set. You're talking about run a report that you want to run every day or every week or every month. In agency side is more about you want to be able to run it across different people being able to pick it up, so it's more reusable across different domains, different industries, that side of things. And I think that points to the other thing, which is that the best automators, the best individuals I've come across who do this in-house, tend to get very deep into their internal systems. So this is about their data. It's about understanding first-party information. It goes into information and inventory and really into the kind of the workings of their website. Whereas I think on the agency side, what we're better to do is to pull from many external sources. So where an individual client might only have one source of link data or one source of crawl data, we might have subscriptions with all of. And so actually a lot of what we find ourselves doing with the automation is aggregation, pulling in data from multiple different sources of link data, for example, and pulling those, aggregating them into insights for multiple clients. So it's kind of many in and then many out.
And actually, do you have any example of SEO activities behind the scenes that help maximize the return on investments? And within these examples, are they benefiting from automation?
Yeah, for example, in my case that I work a lot, for example, with e-commerce websites that want to make the most out of any new trend or opportunity. For example, the integration with keyword tools APIs to identify any new trends, growing searches for some specific categories, retail categories, for example, for which they may not have a relevant indexable facet, and they may want to then reconsider the indexing status or targeting the query with a new subcategory or with new content, and to be ahead of the game on one hand, for example, and then also automating validation, also thinking of e-commerce website whenever a page is out of inventory, for example, to validate, to go through a validation, automated validation system to see if it is worthy, whether to 410 the page or to 201 redirect to the parent category, or to keep it indexable if there are enough search volume already existing about that particular product, and it is much more worthy to recommend similar products. So you can see, you take into consideration the search behavior, the user behavior, the business potential like this. So the automation, when it is sold like that, it makes complete sense, not only from an SEO perspective, because you don't want to have a lot of crawl budget issues, but also from a conversion perspective, because you will get totally the buy-in from the client willing to refer to the existing customers to more different type of products. But it is important that it really makes sense from a conversion, from a business perspective. And I like how the automation can work, taking all of those data sources into considerations.
Do you have any other examples you'd like to showcase?
I think we do a lot.
I mean, we have a. Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, one of the things that we've done that has shown a lot of success over the last year is just automating internal linking and using tools that find not only what queries to link to based on, this is a query that if we impact it in some way over the course of the next month, then there'll be material benefit for client, right? And then also automating the finding of relevant content on our site to link to that content from, and with what anchor text to link to. So that's a process that saves a tremendous amount of time each time we do those types of runs and analysis, probably in the couple of hours per workflow, and it's something that we've shown between 50 and 60% gains year over year for certain clients, just having a methodical way of identifying those opportunities, supporting the right queries, and then finding relevant pages to link from. I think that's a really good kind of baseline SEO tactic that that has shown a lot of benefit for our clients in removing a lot of the time out of that and making it easier to run month in and month out consistently has shown good returns.
Will, I think you wanted to add something.
Oh yeah, sorry, I had a slight delay on the audio there. Sorry for stepping on you.
No worries.
We have an example that I think overlaps between what you both have been talking about there, where some of the work that we've done that I don't know how repeatable it is. I feel like it's a thing we do repeatedly rather than repeatably. Is a load of work around keyword and intent categorization. So kind of taking massive volumes of keyword data and distilling that down into groups of similar intents in order to be able to either build information architectures more effectively or reduce the number of pages in some cases, or discover new areas where we need to create new content at scale. I think that's been some of the highest ROI in terms of the return side, like the biggest impact work. Some of the stuff that we've done that is probably high in ROI because it's reduced a lot of the effort in terms of that you're saying that repeatability, the fact that you write it once and it saves some time kind of every day, every week, every month. Most of that has been around reporting. So aggregating multiple data sources, pulling all of that data into a single data source of truth in, we use a lot of BigQuery and Data Studio, and having it all aggregated in one place so that then it's quick to build the custom reports that each individual client tends to want to look at their data in slightly different ways. But if we've got the underpinnings where we're pulling in biovectors, then again, as I mentioned, I think on the agency, because we have access to the wide range of data sources that any individual client might not have.
So you all share some great examples of how to automate SEO, but I'm quite curious to know, are you using any tools? Are you relying on Python or using API? What's your method to do that?
Yeah, in general, I would say that it depends. It depends on the type of task that you're automating, right? Of course, like if for example, what is the goal? If the goal has to do with, for example, the example that I gave before, decision making when indexing or not, or identifying opportunities, of course, you will rely on a keyword tool. Depends on the keyword tool that is used by you or the client. Nowadays, all of the keyword tools pretty much offer an API to integrate with, and so it also depends on the capacity, the technical capacity of client on integrate the data and do personalized development job with the data source too a bit. So in my case, it highly depends on the client's own capacity to integrate and the development capacity too on one hand, and then on the other hand on the actual goal. That if it is a task, for example, like for identifying errors purely, right, or alerts, that can be pretty much with whatever crawl tool that you have, and then using Zapier or Integromat or whatever alert tool that exists in the market. If the crawling tool doesn't already provide the option to integrate with a PM system, for example. But on the other hand, if it has to do with conversion, business related type of or connected type of activities, then it's important to have a proper integration with that conversion data or product information or data that will need to be taken into consideration through the decision making or validation process, right?
I think we've kind of skewed towards the two extremes on this. There's a dangerous area in the middle where you pull together workflows from many different things built by people who come and go and where it hasn't been deeply maintained, and you end up with a kind of a rigid workflow that's held together with duct tape and string. So we've kind of gone the two extremes. On the one hand, I mean, part of my job you mentioned at the outset, now I'm running SearchPilot. So SearchPilot is a tool spun out of Distilled that is now an independent company. So we have an entire company that's built off a section of automation, which is all around being able to roll out effective SEO A/B tests and then pull the data in from analytics, do a load of statistical neural network understanding of that data and forecast whether the test has been positive or not. That is, millions of dollars of R&D and development time to build a very specialized end-to-end tool designed exactly for that, purpose of SEO A/B testing. So that's SearchPilot. I think on the agency side, we've tended more towards the, as I said earlier, making things not so much. It's not so much figuring that we're going to need to do the same thing over and over again for every single client. It's more about building the capability to use computers as tools. So we do a lot of ad hoc scripting, a lot of small one-off bits of automation, or things where we need to find an answer to a question, and having a computer help is a good way of doing that. So more of our team getting involved in scripts in Jupyter notebooks and those kind of things, using Python for the data analysis, on top of automation in Google Sheets and that side of things, rather than trying to be software engineers who are building entire software packages that need to robustly and handle every error and edge case to be run by a non-SEO, if that makes sense. So for me, it's the two extremes. Sometimes we're building software, sometimes we're scripting and doing much more ad hoc data analysis.
Okay, all clear. GR, some experiences on that point?
I would say, again, I think I like Will's comment about Jupyter notebooks, because the thing I like about Jupyter notebooks and Python in general is I can workflow to get access to data through APIs and through our own custom APIs that do different things and extract things in different ways from websites, and make that available through documented notebooks to analysts who can then run that data and gain insight from that, right? So I think there's a lot of, at least for our agency, there's been a tremendous amount of power there in creating interfaces to Search Console, creating interfaces to crawling data, to like SEMrush, Ahrefs, and our own extraction tools, and making that available so the analysts can run not only more automated, consistent processes, but also can pull down ad hoc reports that are needed for very specific use cases. So yeah, and I think that also goes to Will's point that of the agency versus internal team, where an agency needs to have kind of a wide range of different data sets that it can pull from, whereas an internal team may depend on maybe a single data set and then a lot of internal data. So we try to liberate as much data as we can make possible from a wide variety of sources, and make it accessible and easy to use.
I can see that we already have a lot of questions on this topic, so we'll go through them at the end. But my next question is, do you prefer to automate entire workflows or sequences, or would you rather automate discrete tasks? Tricky one.
I definitely come down on the side of when I'm. Sorry, Aleyda. I see Dr. Let you go ahead.
I think that it's definitely easier discrete tasks, because it's one thing that doesn't necessarily need to tie or to glue together with additional. I mean, when there is a whole workflow, these are a number of many different tasks glued together, right? That need to connect, and so it's you need much more sophistication and validation to make sure that they work as you expect. So it's definitely much easier to, for example, to make sure that you validate the identification or of link 404 pages on your site, and you are then alerted. And then another thing is to automate the whole workflow, making sure that you're not only alerted, but there's an alert that goes through the PM system of your client, and automatically the pages are 404s, all of the links going to them are eliminated automatically within the system, right? So that is a whole workflow. So it needs a little bit more sophistication, more validation, more work. So definitely, I will say, if you haven't implemented anything yet, it will be much easier to start with specific tasks. And after you have implemented a number of specific tasks, to identify which are the ones that should be tied together to implement the whole workflows. And there are many tools nowadays that can highly facilitate this, even if you don't have APIs sometimes, right? For those that don't have coding capacity, like, for example, Zapier or Integromat, there are many tools that you can use to connect together specific tasks too.
Yeah, I would definitely, like I said before, kind of make sure you focus on whether you're building software. If you're building software, you need to go all in on building software, and that is where it will need all of the software disciplines, right? It'll need to be tested and maintained and all those kinds of things. Whereas I think that some benefits of automation are definitely available to individuals or small teams who just want to be able to use a computer to get a job done. That can be really tiny things. So per Aleyda was saying, even we've seen cases where there's no API available, and what we've done is built a small bookmarklet, JavaScript bookmarklet that people can use to visit a page and grab the important information off that page, which just speeds up the task of gathering that data that isn't available in any other way. And I like kind of Unix philosophy here of saying, of using small tools built together. So try and making sure that the output of these little scripts that you're building on the small tools that you're using to help your automation, make the output as standardized as possible so that it can be read into another tool and manipulated further. So, bring it out in CSV format or JSON format, and have that be something that you can then process repeatedly. And that might even be Google Sheets, right? Some of this stuff is people may not even think of using a spreadsheet as really being automation, but I think it can be, especially with these with a web-hosted spreadsheet where it can get access to web data and things at scale. So both ways. We built software, and when it is software, it should be all-encompassing. But if it's something that you're just doing yourself, trying to automate a specific task, then I would lean towards making them as small and modular as you can.
Makes sense. Thanks. GR, so you all already shared some great example of automation, but do you have any, could you share with us the best thing you've automated in your, daily SEO routine?
Well, the internal linking may be one of the best. We've recently automated, like Will was talking about, the being able to cobble something together pretty quickly with a lot of the unsurety over the last month with the coronavirus and new search terms and different search vendors not having updated data on that. A lot of people turn to Google Trends, right? To try to get a sense of directionally for at least brand or category type queries, what were the changes that were happening more real time for a lot of those things. So, we were able to put together essentially a crawler for trend data that you put in a seed term. And then the nice thing about trends is that it pulls like if you put in Nike shoes, right, it'll pull in Air Jordans, right? It'll pull in all the related things. So it essentially goes and pulls in your seed term and then finds all the trending associated searches and just keeps crawling them to where you have just a quick universe of data surrounding a particular topic with associated scores that Google assigns to those. So that was a one-off thing. It took maybe 5 hours to code, but saved, doing search after search after search in Search Console or in Google Trends for a lot of different categories, and is something that can be directly utilized not only by the entire team, saving those iterative searches. So that was a recent example that was able to be coded pretty quickly And then we have a data server, a Jupyter Labs data server for our entire team. So we can post it there and make it available to everyone to run.
Sounds great. Aleyda, do you have any example?
Yeah, I actually wanted to mention something, right? Because yeah, I had already previously shared my example, but I love how you see the different use cases from different areas of SEO, from keyword or opportunity identification to tackling errors that are actually hurting the internal linking of your site, things like that from all areas. And realistically, what Will mentioned before about if you don't have development capacity, right? Don't be afraid of just automate quite easily with Google Sheets, even like, and people indeed, they don't think, and they think that the only way to automate is go very sophisticated or have a in-depth knowledge of a programming language. So for example, right now, Python is, there's a big boom on it, which is amazing, by the way, but realistically, you can, if you don't have right now the resources or the time to go into, don't get stuck thinking that you can only automate with a specific tool set or language or tech stack, because it's not like that. It all depends on the issues that you have and the capacities, and then you can even generate a bookmarklet in your browser sometimes. And even if it is not yet perfect or completely automated or ideal, you're already saving yourself a lot of time just by the fact of saving time. That you can use on actual analysis and recommendations, that is already a win for you.
So next question is, so how do you actually measure the return on investments of your automation? Can you actually do it, and how you do it? Maybe Will, you can start.
Well, so our biggest automation to date of search pilot technology that we spun out, and that is actually large automation designed to measure ROI, because pretty much the entire purpose of SEO A/B testing is to be able to quantify the impact of those SEO changes that we're making. And so by doing that in a very controlled way, by rolling out changes to a subset of pages, and then, as I mentioned earlier, building the kind of neural network statistical forecasting model to understand with a high degree of statistical confidence how big the uplift has been because we've made a change, which could be, per what Aleyda was saying, could be anything from on-page content changes, could be meta information changes. We've even tested internal linking structure changes. It's a bit more complex, but we've managed to get into that area. That enables us to quantify the uplift. Now, of course, that's still only a traffic uplift. We can get from that to estimates of revenue uplift. Obviously, you need to do some kind of attribution modeling or figure out what your preferred connection between traffic and revenue is. But for a number of our customers, yeah, we've taken that end to end all the way to actual sales figures and being able to say, the total cost of this program, here's the forecasted uplift with a confidence interval. And so you essentially get a confidence interval on your return on investment in that case. That obviously is the kind of extreme end of great measurement, in the sense of being able to say, yes, like this is actually responsible for a revenue uptick. A lot of what we've been talking about here today is more like cost saving, right? It's more like saying that thing that used to take, 10 hours of a person every week, you can now do in an hour, and that saves up, frees up time to invest in other areas, and you can expand that in those kind of directions. So we've taken both approaches, but the big exciting one for me is driving revenue increases, not just saying, yeah, we saved some time.
Yeah, makes sense. Anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think that, well, the pretty obvious one is how much time the automation saves to you, right? How much time will it take for you to do the same manually versus the automated way on one hand? And then on the other hand, what Will mentioned is also very important, where the automation allows you to take better decisions than the ones that you will be able to make otherwise. What is the extra traffic conversion value that brings from a business standpoint, right? Additionally too, besides the saving time. So it's even more powerful.
Yeah, I don't know if you can make a true ROI. It's very difficult because I think I think it's too complex, because when you think about automation, you think about obviously making better decisions. You think about saving time. You think about amazing team members who really enjoy working for a place that allows them data to make better decisions than they would somewhere else. So I think there are multiple, there's so many different facets to the automation. I think the baseline, as everyone mentioned, is just time savings, where if I can keep, if we can keep our team members like working here instead of working in just mind-numbing tasks of page pulling, then I think that's a net win over the course of a year, just in more strategic thinking rather than more routine tasks. So if you had to summarize, this session, what would you say is the greatest value of automation? If you had to give like your 3 takeaways of SEO in automation.
I will say that is the best way to scale your influence in an SEO process. However, I think that there's something important that we haven't mentioned that before finishing, it would be great to also tackle. I see more and more tools also saying we automate your SEO, right, completely, or maybe it's not what they want to say, but I have seen companies that understand it that way, right? That all what they need is to buy a tool and they will run the tool and they will get automatically all the recommendations, prioritize how they should, etc. There's only so much that you can end up automating, I believe, because many of the, for example, SEO priorities, which are the ones that will pay off really to be implemented right away. It doesn't only rely purely on SEO configurations, but the capacity of the organization regarding resources and flexibilities and technical CMS, the platform flexibility, resources, etc. Then also the context of the business, the goals that the business may have in the short, mid, and long run regarding certain products. So there are a lot of criteria to be taken into consideration that are not purely technical or that can be easily found by the tool, but have to do with the organization context, with the own bureaucracy of the organization, of other type of requirements that goes beyond purely the SEO ones, but the business related one and the context. So I think that is very, very important to take into consideration, because otherwise sometimes we are also stuck with believing that, if only pushing a button and that's it. And it's definitely in most of the scenarios to be able to completely automate complete workflows requires much more than that, right?
Yeah, you still have to read the data and take into consideration your own company and industry and everything.
100%. Yeah, to make it relevant.
Yeah. So I have some, a few less questions. They are less serious, actually. So if you could go live on the planet, which one would you pick?
So we've been rewatching Star Wars recently with my kids, and I think technically it's a moon rather than a planet, but I think they would definitely choose Endor with the Ewoks and the tree houses, which I have to say I would live in a tree house. So yeah, if you'll allow me a moon instead of a planet, then I'm gonna go with that. That's cool.
That's definitely a cute one, Will.
Maybe we'll do it when there isn't a battle going on. So.
Yeah, indeed. In my case, I'm going to go very meta, because I like to always have my back in all of this type of tricky questions. So I want to live in the most advanced, happier, livable planet that exists in the universe, whose name I don't know because we don't know yet, but it should exist, and it's probably not this one. So yeah, there, I want to go there.
You need to create it.
Yeah, I think I will follow Aleyda and say that I want to live on the planet that most resembles a better Earth. Maybe that's somewhere out there. I don't know.
And if we go back just a minute to our today's subjects, do you have any, just one favorite automation tricks you would like to share, like a quick one that is super efficient?
Yeah, maybe not trick, but I will highly recommend to people to take a look at tools like Integromat or Zapier that allows them to connect together many tasks among different type of platforms that they might not necessarily realize that they can completely automate the whole workflow with no code completely, potentially that, to check them out.
Let me go the other way then and say we've talked a little bit about some bits of code, and Jupyter in particular, which I'm going to make the argument is more accessible than people might realize. People get scared because it uses Python and all the rest of it. But my colleague Robin Lord gave a great presentation. Takes you from the very beginning, installing Jupyter, through to being able to use it for some of the kind of tasks that you might normally do in Excel, but way better. And I was probably in the perfect target market for this talk, but I tried out following his instructions after seeing his talk, having never used Jupyter before, and was able to do some analysis that I wanted to do. So I'm going to say, if you've got an hour, sit down, spend half an hour watching my talk and half an hour playing around with Jupyter.
Yeah, it's actually super handy.
I'll tweet the link to Robin's talk.
Please do.
I know I almost always talk about Python and Jupyter, but I'm going to go a completely different direction and say that I like trying to keep up with everything in the SEO space. And one really easy tip that's been really helpful for me over the last couple of years is I set up a if this then that trigger on Twitter likes to save related articles to Pocket, which means that as I'm reading Twitter and I see something that's interesting, if I like it, it's there. And then probably every week or every couple of weeks, I just go through as I have time and catch up on the articles in Pocket. So it allows me not to miss content that I really like just in the day-to-day craziness.
Well, that is already a great tip to avoid the 500 tabs maximum that I have reached in my mobile browser lately, unfortunately.
Yeah. We have some questions actually from the audience. So the first one is from Nishant. It says, what challenges have you faced while automating travel tasks when your team is completely remote or in different time zones?
I can take that. Most of my team works in office normally, but like I said, we have a shared data server that lives on Amazon, on a Amazon instance, and is accessible via and password protected. So we didn't consider that before building that, but that's been something that with moving from in office to remote, all of that has remained accessible to the entire team. So I think Jupyter Labs is pretty incredible to allow a consistent access to whatever tool sets that you've developed and workflows you've developed, whether you're in office or out of office, at least from an automation standpoint.
I have to say that for me, it's a little bit weird because I have been always distributed, right? Not only with my clients, with the couple of people working with me too. So that is very natural. And I don't think how any different will it be, right? Or what is the additional challenge that I have because of this? Because it is like this the whole time. But I think that what remote work usually requires a lot of really good asynchronous communication. And for that also automation is really good because you can take into consideration, for example, if you are working in a different time zone that your other team members, that depending on the time zone, the task can be, or the alert can be sent to one or the other. So of course you will need an additional layer potentially of security to communicate, to share information or documents. But in general, I think that most of us already work online, and I use, Google Sheets instead of Excel in so many different circumstances already. So it potentially pushes you to, do a lot of the tasks that you rely on desktop-based type of tools to move them to cloud-based directly. For example, a crawling tool like Oncrawl.
Nice plug.
Talking about tools, actually, nice transition. Do you use any for automating internal linking?
We did.
Yeah, you mentioned that earlier.
Sorry, I missed that question.
Are you using any tools to automate internal linking?
Yeah, so JL's the expert here, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, ours is broken into two parts, which pulls data on which, like I said, which queries could be the most important to focus on. And then we review those and see and just ensure that they are actually queries that would drive value. And then we pass that to a second portion of the process that goes out and finds the best, it essentially finds the most relevant pages on your site to those queries that do not have currently in content internal links, and then looks within the content of the page to see if there's existing keyword that can be easily transitioned, or an existing term or terms that can be easily transitioned into that new query that we're wanting to target, or that it doesn't exist, and this is something where we need to add additional content or some additional construct to make that internal link. So just the part of finding the relevant pages to link to that new page with is a big time saver. Finding and yeah, like I said, as long as that's a consistent process month over month, where you're giving 1,000 little nudges throughout the year to queries that are the most important for you, you see over time a strong amount of value from that.
Okay, thanks. I have another question. Do you have any good practices regarding sitemap automation?
Yeah, the validation of the pages that actually need to be on the sitemap, right? By default, we think that all of what is actually indexable by default needs to be there, push, and the sitemap should reflect what you have on your own website by default, ideally, right? But realistically, many websites need to automate and refresh their sitemap if they have an inventory that is updating all the time, news website or marketplaces, for example. So I will say focus on those URLs that actually are the ones that are already known by default by the crawlers, that that are those areas that you have more issues with, or the type of pages that, because of their nature, you have more issues to alert Google right away that they are actually there ready to be to be indexed and focus on those, and then separate and generate specific XML sitemaps for those, always validating realistically when they are non-canonicalized, they are not canonicalizing to others, like redirected, etc. Right? So that is critical.
We have a lot of questions. So the next one is, have you or will you use automation to name images and create alt text on thousands of images?
I think it probably challenge the premise a little bit that we've kind of, well, so that's definitely something that if you were going to put a lot of effort into, I'd want to be first of all doing some testing to see if that was going to make not going to make a meaningful SEO difference. So you're looking the accessibility benefits of alt attributes than you are at the kind of ranking improvement elements. And so yeah, that's probably just how I caveat that and say yeah, like zoom out on the problem and say, is this the biggest challenge of what you need to spend your time automating?
And I would add that I think Google's going to solve that anyway. I think in some of the latest Chrome browsers, they have, do you want us to auto-generate alt text for your images? So to Will's point, yeah, I think that is do you see a demonstrable benefit in doing this? And or are you just, and also I think it depends on the category of images that you have as well. I think some images would be more would be better described by like neural networks than like if you have a muffler store that has a million different mufflers, you know, a neural network's not going to be able to accurately describe well the images of mufflers that you have. It's going to say muffler, right? So it's like,
let's train your neural network on a muffler database.
Right, exactly. So yeah, I mean, I think it, but I think it depends on a lot of different things. But I think that's something I would really want to test and see is there material benefit based on the site that you have, and then make a decision from there.
But that is the thing, right? I mean, of course, you can try to automatize a lot of things, but realistically, in this particular case, where is the image included? If it is an image of a product page, for example, it's very likely that already a good enough alt description will be the name of the product that is showcasing, right? So there are a lot of ways to implement this type of, or accomplish this type of task in a way that already saves you a lot of time right away, versus the completely perfect 100% accurate way to describe that specific image and the additional return that you will get from that, right? So it's, again, as a team, if it is really working for you to invent the wheel from scratch, right, rather than implementing a very straightforward approach that you already know that will get you almost there, and then go ahead prioritizing all the tasks that you know the outcome potential will be much higher, and complexity much higher too. Yeah.
George is actually asking, do you guys use only Cloud Collabs to run automation scripts, or do you run them locally?
Cloud what?
Do you guys use only Cloud Collabs to run automation scripts, or do you run them locally?
We use Collab.
I definitely stop running locally, especially. It's a mixture for us.
It's a mixture for us as well.
Okay. All right. Okay, let me check the last. I think we have some time for 1 or 2 more questions. Okay. I got a question from Francois who says, what's the most advanced SEO automation technique you came across?
Ooh. That's a hard one.
So I don't know if it kind of counts as, it's hard to know what exactly come across means, but that I've seen the inner workings of, in other words, stuff that we've had our own access to. Definitely the most kind of hardcore on the algorithmic side is some of the stuff, two areas of Search Pilot specifically, I think. One is the technology that we use for what we call salting. When we take a site section and we want to break it down into subsections that are statistically similar. So we have a number of different metrics that we might be looking at that we want to be as similar as possible between these broken down groups. And so you want to basically shuffle the pages into random groups that nonetheless have similar statistical artifacts. So that's one part. And then I think the other part that I mentioned before was the some of the neural network technology that is for the forecasting side. So we started out when we first built the platform that became Search Pilot. We were using causal impact, and I think we blogged about this a little bit. So we were using off-the-shelf open source software that helped us do that kind of forecasting of uncertain data. We're now using a variety of different techniques, but some of those are based off machine learning and neural networks, and that's the that's the most advanced application that I've seen, kind of the code of, if you like.
Okay.
Yes, I think. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Aleyda. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that in my case, something that I have been very impressed about is Hamlet Batista company, RunSense, that automates the identification of SEO issues and then allows you to implement them through Cloudflare workers. And I have been testing it with my own websites, and yeah, I'm very impressed by the way that it identifies the issues, recommend you to fix the issue right away, and then simplify a lot of the technical complexity on doing it so, because you don't rely on your own CMS or platform code capacity, but you do it right away with a worker. So yeah, you should probably check it out in case you haven't, because it's really good. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for sharing that. Thank you very much, guys. I think this is the end of the webinar. Really enjoyed, to learn more about your experience on automation. So I'm sure everyone enjoyed it. We had a lot of questions, so that's great. Thank you so much again for being part of it. The replay will be live tomorrow, so if you want to watch it again, it will be on our YouTube channel. Please stay with us, as we have another episode running in 1 hour 30 minutes exactly. We'll talk about how high in data science are shifting the face of SEO, and we'll be having Nagib Touiri, Mike King, Christy Scheischinger, and Hamlet Batista. You just mentioned him earlier. So don't forget to join us for this episode. And thank you again, guys, for being with us today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.